Good, that's awesome. I'm going to just take a mental note of that because you may not clap or stand afterwards. So, yeah, Project Phoenix, that's our company. My name is Anthony Molzon. I'm from Fargo, North Dakota. That's west of here. And we're creating a platform for drone pilots, commercial drone pilots, to sell photos and videos and be contracted to fly. So Aegisflow, connecting people to pilots. So quite simply, we are helping drone pilots, commercial drone pilots, make money in this fast emerging drone services industry. Quick question, are we familiar with drones? Yes? Yes? Raise your hands. Okay, who didn't raise your hand, you're lying. Yes, so first let's back up a little bit. What is a commercial drone pilot? It's someone who registers with the FAA, government stuff. They take something called the Part 107. It's a simple test, costs $150. It's about 38 minutes worth of test, and you answer questions like, should I or should I not drink alcohol while flying a drone? The answer is not A. So where do we fit in to help these drone pilots make that money, right? So let's talk about Alan. Al. He just got his Part 107. He's now a commercial drone pilot, and it's a side hustle. He just wants to have some fun, but he wants to find a place to make money. Enter Aegisflow, and he can actually upload his photos, his videos into this online portfolio that allows people to search for, stream, purchase, and download that content. Nothing unlike Getty stock, iStock images, things like that. And then we got folks like Vic. He was basically waiting at the front of the line on August of 2016 when the Part 107 first became available. That's when the first time people were able to take those photos and videos and actually start selling them to other humans on Earth. And he is actually focused on building a high portfolio of clients as well as the content that he delivers. He wants to be the leader in this drone services industry. So for him, he needs something a little bit more comprehensive, a full multi-sided marketplace, a platform that allows him to manage the regulations, where he can and cannot fly, be able to connect with third parties to upgrade his equipment, and of course manage the logistics. Bless you. Manage the logistics of the sales, the notifications, the reporting, all the stuff that drone pilots, or dronies we'll call them, they don't want to do. They want to fly, right? That's their bailiwick. So we actually bring that all together. And Vic and Alan, they're two of over 200 being added to this market in the United States today. So it's pretty aggressive. And this really just started in August of 2016. So you imagine how young and how fast this industry is growing. And how do we know this? Well, our team, we'll talk about that later, we're data scientists, we're geospatial, nerds. We just love data. And so we tapped into the FAA database because thank you, government. And we know exactly where all of the pilots are, their first name, their last name, where they live, when they registered. And thanks again to government, we were able to cross-reference that with some information from the Social Security database. Don't worry, we don't know your numbers, to actually know the likelihood of them being male or female based on their first, middle, and last name. So we actually know who we're targeting. No surprise, it's mostly males. So while we're going to, world domination, take over the world with drone pilot services, we've got to start with a minimum viable product, just like every business. So for $25 a month, you got folks like Vic and Alan. They use our services. They upload their photos, their videos, and all they want to do is be able to take this content, create a shareable link that they can give to their clients, to their prospective contractors, where it'll bring them right back into Aegisflow, where they can see that, stream it, purchase it in a shopping cart with a single click. And of course, we have to understand how much it's going to take in order to keep this thing going to service that industry. So $381,000 approximately to make sure that we can keep going for the 1,271 pilots that we need to minimally sustain. But of course, we need the big, hairy, audacious goals. 15 million is our first big goal here in the next 3-4 years, and 15.421828% of the market. And there's a little number up there, 51 employees. I believe in, on the previous slide, 51 employees. I believe in hiring local, I'm from Fargo. We're a small community. If you know about Fargo, it's a community, it's a tech hub, and it's growing fast, and we're trying to make a name for ourselves that we don't actually get brain drain. We bring people in, so spreading the word, having the opportunity to present here, thank you guys a lot. I appreciate that. So as we go from launch to basically the moon, we have to talk about our launch campaign, and we have to go around the country. So we're starting in Denver. We're going out to San Francisco, San Diego, Dallas, Austin, Florida, New York, and of course we're going to finish in none other than Las Vegas, because that's what you do in these world tours for drone services. And along those lines, we're going to be looking for the pilots that are competent in these specific areas, and it's because these are the ones that have been identified as either the most fragmented, the most needed to be upgraded, or simply just have not been looked at for 100 or more years. And so when I say we, I mean the partners that we're working with locally. Yarn is a great media group, cinematography. They know what they're doing, and they're going to help build our brand, our story, our strategy, take what we've started to say and spread it across the social spheres. And then we're going to have them work with another local group to actually manage and market our physical spaces, the actual print media, the ad buys, and I help curate some of the additional events later in time for our team. It's because of this. It's the pilots. They need to know what their clients are and what they're asking for. They're looking for high quality, and most importantly, they're looking to build trust. So I may or may not crib a little bit from Alibaba and their trust certification, how they grew the China market to work together. But it's idea validation that really is going to set the tone for both our pilots and the people to build on that trust. And unless you lived under a rock, you probably heard about Hurricane Harvey, and actually it destroyed basically everything in Houston, almost 200,000 homes, 40 billion in damages. That's a big deal. But for the first time and at scale, the drone pilots actually partnered with the insurance adjusters, and they were able to go from 3 houses a day in auditing to 3 houses an hour. That's the difference between, yeah, I know, right? Yeah. That's the difference between actually having people get paid in 2 months, 2 quarters, 2 years to 2 days. That's real world impact, where they're sitting in their hotel, they don't know what to do next. They can now pay for that bill, they can go home and clean up, or they'll know that they have to move on and rebuild. Just knowing that earlier is always better, I'm sure. Sweet. You can't see it up there, so it doesn't matter what they can do. It matters that we can do all of it. So those are our competitors. What's interesting is that this landscape is young, and because we're building a multi-sided platform, most of our competitors, we more closely align with them as collaboration, a partnership effort. So we'll zoom into a couple of those. Droners.io, they actually were basically the first to market to create what we call a job board, a place for pilots, 15,000 in their case, to upload their portfolios, what they do, where they do it, how good they are at it, and show some examples of it so they can actually contract them to fly. But there is no mapping environment, and it was all manual. Hey, how you doing? It's like a yellow book, right? And then you got DroneBase, and kudos to them. They were the first to market to actually create this job opportunity in a mapping environment. They cleverly took the MLSs in the California market for homes over $1 million. They had drone pilots sign up to this service for free, and they would pick those jobs to have them fly for those vanity shots for real estate. They would upload it to DroneBase, and if DroneBase could sell it to the real estate agent, then the pilot may get paid. So this DroneBase would actually sell for $700, $800, $900 for these shots, and the pilot would get paid like $19. Did I say like? No, exactly $19. It's absolutely ridiculous. So we're going to go ahead and order of magnitude, a differentiator. That's going to have some fun there. But without them, we wouldn't know that there was an idea worth, our problem worth solving, rather. And all of everything I just chatted about it's not worthwhile if we don't actually have the team to do it. So real quick, and if you guys want to ask more questions about it, my co-founder and I, the guy who looks like Hagrid from Harry Potter, and myself, we actually got our start in precision agriculture. So we worked with the satellite companies across the world to take parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. You don't have to worry about that part. Near infrared, our eyeballs can't see it, but if you actually take a picture of a plant, it'll tell you how healthy it is. If you take a picture of a farmer's field, you can actually see the areas of high biomass, a lot of greenness, a lot of vegetation, and low biomass. We were able to automatically take that information and push it into a machine without the touch of a human hand to help them adjust variable rate spray applications, fertilizer, seed chemical. That was fun. And then the other half of our team, they actually created the first turn-by-turn navigation system on Earth. So if you ever heard of Garmin or Here Technologies, Nokia, they actually helped craft that, and their stuff lives in 4 out of every 5 cars on the planet. So I like to call us a geospatial super team, but we've got a lot of supporting cast that's helping us along the way. And in fact, the Grace, our president, Garrick, was my mentor at the Clean Tech Open, and he's actually helped us understand the life cycle, the sustainability of a pixel and the stewardship of that information. And while it's not for us, because we're building software, we can actually help our pilots and their clients understand what that really means. So being an ambassador is kind of the role that we'll probably fill and take on that position. But the end.
Right on.
I think it was 9 minutes.
What can this community do for you, Anthony? What can we do for you and for your company?
That is a good question. If you know any drone pilots, or if you know people who are looking for drone pilots, let them know of something called Aegisflow, that this platform for them to store and upload their photos and videos. Basically, just recap the last 9 minutes for them perfectly. We'll be fine. That would be the big thing. And then two, just keep us in mind when this is growing, because at some point we're going to have to build on the people that are looking for the pilots more than the pilots themselves. So whether it be the real estate, the construction industry, oil and gas, just auditing. There's a group in Fargo actually that they've strapped a thermal sensor to a drone, and they're actually taking rooftop pictures for thermal and leak detection quickly, swiftly. So they don't have to actually climb in the middle of winter. They can actually use the drone to identify and then fix it from the inside. So there are groups already doing that out there. So being able to just keep that in mind, think of something that you could use drones for, and just let them know, and then refer them to me. That'd be awesome. So. Yeah.
Well, let's hand it over to questions. I have a question right away, just because we're looking at one of the business airports in the nation. Actually,
yeah.
Flying Cloud. Are drone pilots, are they partnering with any of the FBOs, the fixed-based operators, or are there any ties to the airports or in the existing aviation infrastructure? And if so, are there partnerships or potential there for you?
Yeah, so there's a multi-part question there. So with the actual partnerships, it's not necessarily with the airports themselves, but it's actually bubbled up one level for groups out there known as like AirMap, that have taken the entire airspace infrastructure where the airports are, where people can fly, where they can't fly, and they've created this universal map. And it is through this mechanism that we're able to easily, as a drone pilot, communicate with the airports themselves, just for the flight and the record logs, to keep everyone safe. So that's the biggest thing that, as far as a partnership goes, would work with AirMap, because they're making everyone safe while they're flying in the air. But as far as the actual application for drones flying in these areas, it would not necessarily be on the small drones that we know of, like the little white ones that are flying around. We're talking about the larger ones, the ones that they've taken Predators and basically taken off all the military equipment, strapped it with solar panels, and these things can fly for 16, 18 hours at a time in the air, taking perpetual surveillance of a particular area, whether it be for agriculture or border patrol, whatever it is. So being able to partner with groups like the Flying Cloud, or in the Fargo area, Grand Forks, we've got something called the Northern Plains UAS test site, one of 8 that actually allows you to fly these drones beyond visual line of sight. It means that you can actually just let this thing go over the horizon. You can still legally control it, which as a regular droney, don't do that, you'll go to jail. Club fed, so there's couches, but it's still bad. So.
Good question.
Yeah.
Will your site have a directory of pilots on it?
Yes.
Because in our business, we talked about this. As I mentioned, we're in the bulk freight margin business. And what happens, you've got these small little dot on the river where somebody loading a barge full of $1 million worth of products, and nobody gets to see it, right?
Right.
The owners of the product are in an office someplace, and we toyed the idea of, if I could just fly a drone over it for 10 minutes, a live feed, and just check in on the quality control aspect of things.
You're right on, and yeah, also good. Just call me. Actually, that's actually a big thing, and what we see, there's a group back home called Crystal Sugar. If you guys are familiar with Crystal Sugar, that's actually right in Fargo as well, and we actually helped our group, my previous adventure with the satellite imagery and aerial, we were able to identify within the season the areas of nitrogen management. So to be able to detect, and then after the beet was harvested, those piles to detect the temperature and the changes. And that was great for a drone. Again, coming back to thermal, being able to detect if it was above 40, I think 38.8 degrees or something like that, so it wouldn't mold, and so that it was high enough so it wouldn't freeze. So they cut those piles. So same application, just a different industry. Absolutely. Yeah.
Great presentation.
Thanks.
So I just want to make sure I'm going to answer probably the question here. But essentially, your platform is a marketplace, i.e. people that need drone work, they can go to it to find the right pilot, do the right work. And it's also a opportunity for pilots to market their services.
Yes.
And there's a marketing revenue stream for pilots that come into your organization. And there's also a transaction fee that you have when people use, when you put the buy and sell together. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Excellent. That wasn't actually that tough at all. I think I nailed it. Oh, okay.
Did you say August of 2016?
Yeah, that's when they first allowed folks to grab the Part 107 to start flying commercially and sell their photos and videos. There was something a short term before that called the Part 333 that allowed the same thing, but it was basically a book this thick that you had to learn on, and you were treated as a regular pilot, had to do 300 hours worth of basically services before you were able to even fly a drone.
And you founded your company when?
May 11th of 2017.
May 11th of 2017.
Yep. So we hope to launch on May 10th, so that we actually launch in under a year. It'd be so great.
Now, is this a mobile phone app?
It will be. It's going to be a browser-based first.
Okay.
Yep. So the way that you would be able to see the content from these pilots as they come in would be not typically through just a standard mapping interface, but it'd be through, like, we'll call them cards. These, have you guys heard of Pinterest? So similar to Pinterest in that way, where you're actually able to see the content, but at the bottom of it will be how much it was, where it's from, and then you can actually wormhole into that card and see all the details, more about the pilot, where it was captured, and actually look at it on the map where it was taken. So, yeah. So putting that in the mobile environment, it's going to be very exciting, but it's going to be very hard. Yep. Yeah. Yes.
This came to here recently.
Yeah.
How do you view your obligation with regard to assuring your pilots have the 107 certification? That's number one. And what liability may you face in the future if your pilots don't abide by privacy laws and they're posting something that maybe isn't kosher?
Those are very good questions, and something that we focus a lot of our time on. So while this is tailored, marketed towards the commercial drone pilots, we will not stop anyone from just spending $25 to upload their content. They have to sign on with their actual registration number in order to open up the shopping cart module. If they don't have that, then they can't actually sell it, but they can still share their content.
And that's a specific form that can be specifically identified as a 107 certification.
Yep, it's actually, so you actually get a card, like a license, just like every pilot, like as you drive, and then there's a number on there that's registered with the FAA, which is convenient because we'll actually cross-reference with the database that we tapped into. So we can know if they're legal, upstanding, and then we'll be working to check against, and I know you didn't ask this part, but with folks who actually have been fined for things that they illegal activities, and we'll cross-reference with black hat activity. Exactly. That is absolutely accurate. And then as far as the actual, is the content good? So we can only indemnify so far, so much, but when it comes down to it, we need to make sure that the transaction is between the client and the pilot themselves, and that they're taking the burden of both what's there. However, because this content is going to be searchable after the fact in a secondary market, we need to make sure that we effectively are subject matter experts looking at this content, allow them to flag it as inappropriate, just like all the services that you see today. So as we grow and as we grow at scale, we'll have to manage that more effectively for sure. But very good question.
Is there a weather application that this could be used for? Storm chasing, tornado chasing? I know drones are light and would likely get destroyed in a tornado situation. Could there be a way that could be used?
Absolutely. Actually, that's a very good application for it. So obviously media and marketing is one aspect. So you see a lot of news crews actually utilizing drones today for just typical just typical cinematography, videography purposes, but for storm tracking and things like that, I don't think it's outside of the wheelhouse. The way I would see it first applied would be something a little bit more benign, like just staying ahead of the weather, staying ahead of the storm from a high level to make sure that people are exiting like early stages in a hurricane effectively, things like that, before you actually just let it just destroyalize itself in the middle of the eye. So, yeah.
Is there a trade association yet for pilots, or is this too new for that to, or a trade publication of some sort that using to get in front of big audiences?
Yes. So I guess a defined trade application or a trade.
Well, an association where the pilots themselves are getting together to build their industry.
Yes, there are a number of them. In fact, because they're all hungry to actually help this thing grow and foster early and fast without a lot of fragmentation, you see some decision makers that have actually taken on the burden of managing 10, 20, 50,000 pilots, not just here in the United States, but globally. So we actually interact with the decision makers there to make sure that we're speaking the same message, the mission that they're trying to imbue on their group, and then we can actually just work through them to access their pilots. So.
Do you have trade shows yet?
Yeah, and so actually all of those ones, so the one where had like the little launch, little rocket, and then there's the moon at the end where we're going to go. Yeah, that's all of those are trade shows across the United States that we'll actually be introducing ourselves to. About 25,000 attendees, all keyed in on drone services, whether it be commercial, residential, government, or private. So. Mm-hmm.
It was a big and impressive team, and I think you said you're pre-launch, so
Yeah.
Are you venture funded currently?
We are, yes.
Time's up, gotta go.
Yeah, see ya. All right. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
It seems like if I'm a drone pilot,
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the chat boards, whatever, I'm eventually going to find you.
Yes.
But so it seems like a harder challenge is the other side of the marketplace. Like, if I know I have an application for a big military grade thing that can fly 16 hours, I probably know a guy who can fly that thing. Right?
Yes.
Or I know where to find that person.
Yep.
How do you, where are the people that don't, it either doesn't occur to them, or like even real estate agents, it seems like that's trendy enough, they kind of know where to, how are you gonna get people on that side of the marketplace that don't already have, like access to a pilot?
Yep.
Or the awareness that they should be using one?
Yeah, so it's there's three parts to it, and the first, because we're building a multi-sided platform, we actually tailor into two masters here. The first is to make it a viable solution just for the drone pilots themselves. So what are they doing? They have already knocked on the doors. They've already started building their client base, right? So they're actually bringing those clients in. So that's the first wave, small wave. But those are the innovators, the early adopters that we'll actually bring on board as the people looking for pilots and more jobs. They already
got the relationship, but they're saying, here's
Yep.
how you buy my stuff.
Here's how you actually do it in a standardized fashion. So that drone pilot can now work with not just 5 or 6 clients in their own disparate forms. They can actually now work with 20 clients through a standardized mechanism, Aegisflow. So then the second wave comes in through our own media marketing push, and obviously, whatever we do to incentivize the pilots to bring more folks in to help push and drive the job board to we'll call data sufficiency. That'll just happen over time organically, and we'll just trial and error that. And then part 3 is at scale. When these two groups are here, we'll actually just have to just manage, expectations on both sides. If there's too many jobs and not enough pilots, the people from the job site will actually start to go away. If there's too many pilots and not enough jobs, so we're going to have that give and take probably forever. So we'll manage that in part 3.
Is your transaction fee, is the buyer or the seller pay for that?
The drone pilot is always on the hook for the fees.
So
Yep.
if I find a deal through your platform, and it's $500, I'm paying a portion of that to you.
Yep. So you as a drone pilot, you'll actually say, I'm going to do this thing. I'll take your job's $500. And so because we're the facilitation service, we'll take 15% of that, and they get the remaining. So competitors are doing like 50 to 70%. So we're going to have some fun there for some basically just some. Yeah, I'm hoping so.
And do I put the work order out there for a pilot at a certain price point, and that pilot can decide to accept that or not?
Yes, so it'll actually be similar to like the Amazon Marketplace or eBay auction. So it'll be buy now or bid for it, if you will. So we'll actually introduce, once the job board is here, because that's phase 2. Minimum viable doesn't even include this, by the way. Phase 2 will actually introduce that along with an instant chat board, basically. So take the IRC chats of yesterday, the Yahoo chats of the world, and allow them to interact, both buyer and seller, together. Because in order to build a proper framework for a contract, well, I'm sure some of you are aware, there's a lot of rigmarole that you have to go through before you actually build a framework that's worth signing. And so allow them to chat instantly to see if it's even worth their time. Yep.
Time for one more? Go ahead.
Yeah, I got one more. So, you're gonna be more than just Upwork for drone pilots, but you speak as though every pilot instance and every interaction and commercial transaction is a single pilot. I'm not paying close attention. What is the trend of commercialization and consolidation of data generation? And are you subject to some company with 100 pilots, right, wanting to use your service, or do you have an enterprise plan ready for that?
Yeah, so it's actually just per user, and it's actually more specifically per the amount of data that they capture and store. So the $25 gets them a 1/4 terabyte. So a group of 100 pilots, let's just imagine at scale, they utilize 60% per user. We're talking about maybe a 40 to 60 terabyte plan. So we'll just basically use it, and it does scale.
What I mean is this: what if I'm running a company that is LiDAR as us, you know, and I'm out there mapping all the cornfields right in South Dakota?
Yes.
And I'm doing it again and again and again, and I have 100 pilots across the country, but I'm the one that's contracted with you, and I'm having them loaded as my employee, not as an individual contractor to you.
Okay, so there's 2 parts to that. So we've actually have some idea validation with that. There's a group out in Washington called Measure, and they actually have franchised pilots themselves. So they give the equipment, the batteries, all of that stuff. Logistical nightmare, by the way, with batteries. And they actually support through one name. They all wear the Measure brand. And so if Measure were to come to us, we would actually support them on behalf of the pilots that they're servicing. But if one of those pilots wanted to come to us independently, it's one and the same. So if that did not
Or you have
answer.
to have a pilot as an individual entrepreneur doing business on his own as an independent.
Yep.
Then you have a pilot as an employee, right?
Yes.
Of a company that itself is doing data that may choose to use your platform.
Correct.
And you need to be, I think, prepared to manage that, because that's probably the future of drone data processing and packaging.
Yes, so someone who is actually, they got their Part 107, they work for a construction company, and they're actually doing the drone work for the company, but then they may want to do some stuff on themselves. Yep, so we'll have basically a clean break if the construction company themselves.
There's going to be an IBM of drone data. There's going to be an Amazon,
Yes.
right, of pilot acquisition.
Yes.
It's not going to be an independent world of pilots in some number of years.
No, and we're actually getting to the point where there's full automation. You got folks like 3D Robotics who are creating platforms, these literal platforms that these drones will sit on top of, and they'll automatically just pick up, they'll go fly the job, they'll capture the data, they'll come back to the hub, they'll recharge, they'll finish their job out, they'll upload the data without the touch of a human hand. But the thing is that someone still needs to program that in, enter Aegisflow, and these pilots can actually manage that platform without actually even leaving the comfort of their home. Of course, after beyond visual line of sight. I promise I'll be done now. Okay. Cool. Thank you guys a lot.